get spurred. I have this conversation with entrepreneurs all the time about, or want to be entrepreneurs, about the fear of leaving a safe, as they believe it is, corporate job for adventures into entrepreneurship and the uncertainty that that brings. So you left your safe, cushy corporate job in May of this year. So May 2013. At what time?
4:32 p.m. and 27 seconds.
On May, what's the date?
10th.
10th. Okay, all right, sounds good. And you were in the educational world. We won't go into too much detail on that, but the quick of it, as I understand it, is the values of the corporation you were working for were not in alignment with your values.
Not at all. If you really get to know me, what drives me is people and compassion. That is one of my core values, and I had to take a long, hard look at what I really cared about and what motivated me, and I just knew that they weren't valuing the same things. And so, every day I kept getting frustrated and hitting my head against the wall, and these values were clashing, and then I just realized that there's nothing wrong with that I'm not the one that's at fault. I don't need to flex my values to fit that corporate world.
Yeah.
It just wasn't for me.
Absolutely. So you'd already started your business, Les Red Balloons.
Yes.
And you'd had that business 3-ish years up until that point. So you'd been starting your business on the side. And when you decided to take that full step out of corporate and a full step into entrepreneurship, talk to me specifically about how did you think about, okay, I need to potentially scale back your life and your spending in order to accommodate that?
Well, I knew never to keep my eggs in one basket. I knew that regardless of my tenure or my contribution, that I was still disposable, which is, people view the corporate world or 9 to 5 as secure when it's not secure, because you can be bought out or there's a restructure, which is what happened, my 10th restructure in a year, and then you're out of a job. So I had been building Le Red Balloon and had been putting money in my savings because I knew there was going to come a day where I would be gone and I would need to fall back on something. And so really that whole transition was just me never saying no. If people offered me a consulting job or they needed help or support with something, they needed me to house it, whatever it was, I never said no, because I knew that I had to somehow make a living, but I wasn't going to do it in the traditional realm, I suppose. So I just kind of started getting creative, and I'm somebody that loves manicures and pedicures, and I love shopping. I mean, I'm a stylist. Hell, I'd love to shop. But really recognizing and asking myself, is this something I really need versus a want?
Yes.
Am I gonna die if I don't have this? No, I can pay my rent, I can buy my groceries, and really looking at what I need.
Yeah. And that really is such an important point, as it ties into not only your overall values and living by your values, but I see this a lot with individuals that get themselves into debt, for lack of a better word, and it's sort of the keeping up with the Joneses, the American way, if you will, of, oh, I need that new car, or I need that new thing, because that's the pervasive view around us. You see your neighbor roll in with their brand new Mercedes, and but for most of us, that's just more and more and more debt. And to me, now you're in chains, so to speak. You can't leave that corporate job because you're now supporting this lifestyle, probably living, maybe not beyond your means in that corporate job, but I would say potentially living beyond your means in general. And you're now chained to that, and you can't step out of that in order to pursue some of your passions. And I get it, folks, you want the big house, and you may have children, and you're saving for their college fund, and all of these things. There's been plenty of entrepreneurs who have started businesses with small children in tow. It's not, there are, yes, exactly.
I guess really just being creative and open to what the possibilities are out there. I've taken on some projects where I knew I might not get paid for this now, but this is a really good opportunity, and I think it could really lead to something in the future, and then really stepping up and just doing it and trying new things. And it's so amazing to me because when I was at the corporate world, I always felt I didn't feel necessarily strong enough or smart enough. And that's because I had to go through 50 people to get permission to do anything. And now if I want to do something, I could just come to you or to a client and say, why don't we do this or do it this way? And it's like, okay, implement next day. And I'm used to this whole 6-month approval process, and so really just getting creative and really innovative and trying new things. I think that's the biggest lesson that I've learned.
We're gonna add a plug for co-working and what you're saying. It's hard to get creative like that when you're starting your business out of your spare bedroom and really hunkering down in that isolation. Would you say that being a part of the Hera Hub community has spurred some
Would I say
creativity?
yes? Girl, I'd wear a t-shirt that says co-working saved my life. But Felina, you set me down a week before I left corporate, and you said, what's your process? What's your week going to look like? And I hadn't really thought about it. And this is not vacation. I'm not just, I wake up at 10 and hang out and I'll send an email here or there. It's like, no, I dedicated myself to still having a structure. So, I wake up at a decent hour, I try to exercise, not as of late, but I'm working on it. And then I go to the co-working space if I don't have clients or a meeting, I'm here.
Yeah.
Because if I don't put those kind of like disciplinary limits on myself, I would just kind of be...
Well, it's hard. I mean, and this comes up a lot around entrepreneurship is the accountability. When you go from a big corporate structure and over accountability to, again, your spare bedroom, and it's just you trying to innovate and create and think differently, it's very hard to do when you're really set in isolation. I think for women in particular, and I'm not saying women are less focused than men, although I do know a few folks with shiny object syndrome, but really just continuing to give yourself the structure that you need to continue to move your business forward. My last question for you, Skylar, is do you feel like this is a millennial, so to speak, almost opportunity? So the reason why I ask that question is, when we do get later into our 30s and 40s and we're having children and mortgages and, potentially looking at college tuition and all these different things, it seems a bit more daunting to jump out of what we might think is a safe, secure job into entrepreneurship. Do you think it's an opportunity, or does it matter?
I do think it's an opportunity. I don't think at the very end it does matter, because you have to really look at what motivates you, what are your values, and if you're not getting what you need at where you are, then you need to get it somewhere, because having life's fulfillment, it controls your happiness and well-being, and that to me is above anything else. But I do know, I had people all the time tell me, look, you're young, you don't have kids, leave. Go do something for yourself. Like, that's so true. And so I do think in some ways I do have an advantage, because I'm renting and my family's here, so if something ever happened, I do have a support system to fall back on. So I am lucky in that way, but I don't think that entrepreneurism is necessarily only for people that are my age. I think that we're flocking to it because the traditional means of finding a job are, they're not the same. Job boards and all that, finding a job is not the way it used to be. So some of us are being forced into entrepreneurism, but and not just millennials, everyone is, but so I wouldn't say necessarily my age is what forced me into it. It was really kind of what I valued, but being the age I am was a definite benefit.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys.
You're welcome. Leave. You can do it.